Are you ready?
Hello wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Irish Wrestle Talk. And today I'm going to take a look back at when I first started watching wrestling and why I've continued to be interested in it for all these years, and what wrestling means to me and a lot of other people, whether you're young or old. So going way back, I can remember a time when I was just a kid, and back then in Ireland, the selection of TV channels was pretty limited, as it was before the days of the rollout of mainstream satellite or cable. So we only had a handful of channels to really choose from. But one of those channels was UTV, and on Saturdays, around about lunchtime, they'd broadcast a program called World of Sport Wrestling, which is where I got my first taste of pro wrestling. And the household names in this at the time were the likes of Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks. Now, if you're not familiar with these characters, you should go and take a look. There's plenty of footage on YouTube and so on. But soon after this, with the rollout of Sky and the likes of Eurosport, I was exposed to a new magical world of WWF Wrestling. And US wrestling was just on a different level in terms of production and otherwise. They had more of a budget to work with, I suppose, but the characters and the storylines, the larger-than-life personas, the exciting, thrilling action, iconic rivalries, and legendary promos, it was cracking stuff to watch. And face versus heel, or good guy versus bad guy, this was a form of escape each week, while I waited in anticipation to view the TV shows such as Primetime Wrestling, Superstars of Wrestling, and Wrestling Challenge, where you'd very rarely see the big stars facing each other, as most of the time the matches had enhancement talent to make the stars look even better, or maybe what you'd call squash matches. And some notable enhancement talent, such as Barry Horowitz or the Brooklyn Brawler. We had Iron Mike Sharp and many more. And they were also sometimes referred to as jobbers, which I think was a little bit disrespectful, as they were there to do a specific job and they did it very well. And I think some of them were also up-and-coming stars before the days of NXT and the likes. And these were also the days before internet and social media, of course, with no real-time access that we have the pleasure of experiencing today. And many of these shows were also taped weeks in advance of broadcast, unlike the live product we see today. So I really bought into the whole world of wrestling when many others were just saying, "Oh, that's fake. They're not really fighting or hitting each other. They're glorified stuntmen." But look, for a child like me at the time, this type of performance art was amazing, and I couldn't get enough of it. I can remember staging mock wrestling matches with friends where we'd practice moves on one another as our favourite characters, recreate Royal Rumbles and Survivor Series teams. And one of my favourite characters at the time was Bret The Hitman Hart, as I just liked the look of him and thought he was really cool with his eye-catching ring gear, the sunglasses, not to mention the incredible talent that the guy had, which we didn't appreciate half as much at the time. But many sharpshooters were applied, and also many rude awakenings, small packages, clotheslines, and even some perfect plexes, with a few $1 million dreams and sleepers cinched in for good measure. These were great times to be alive in the gardens, reconstructing all kinds of dream matches well before the days of "don't try this at home" warnings. And we'd all take turns imitating our favourite wrestlers and trying to cut top promos along the way. But of course, nothing could come close to the real thing. And back in those days, the pay-per-views consisted of 4 large ones per year. the big hitters of the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam and Survivor Series. The classic themes used and Vince McMahon roaring out what was to come. And for any of us lucky enough to have the channels back then, these events were screened live before the paywalls began coming in and becoming a thing. And we'd be pleading with the parents to allow us to stay up late and to watch. And it was either that or try and catch a highlights package at a later date, which wasn't an easy task given the limited ways of viewing. So Survivor Series used to be held live on Thanksgiving on the last Thursday of November before it was moved to a Sunday after some years. And now, of course, it's on a Saturday like the other main pay-per-views. And it will probably become a 2-night event somewhere down the line like Mania and SummerSlam. But with less events at the time, televised at least, it made sure that storylines and feuds had a lot of time to build up and simmer, and the main characters involved in the rivalries only got to face off finally at the event, making the payoff even more satisfying. And the writing and the creativity seemed to be on another level, really. And the mind games, the psychology, and the all-round talent on display was exceptional. Classic characters at the time when I started watching were the likes of Hulk Hogan, who was just a real-life superhero, Macho Man and his intensity, and who hasn't tried an impression of the Macho Man, yeah? Andre the Giant, who was fascinating to see, as I'd never seen anyone as gigantic in my life. Brutus the Barber Beefcake, strutting his stuff, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and his 2x4, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, who taught me that everybody has a price. And then you had Demolitions, Axe and Smash, the Ultimate Warrior with the power of the Warriors and his crazy promos, Mr. Perfect with his fantastic vignettes, which still hold up well to this day and are quite amusing, and Ravishing Rick Rude insulting the audiences across America. And that's just to name a few. And then you had the managers, such as Bobby the Brain Heenan and his Heenan family faction, who then went on to be a fine commentator, both in WWE and WCW, the Doctor of Style Slick, Mr. Fuji, Jimmy Mouth of the South Heart, and so many more. Always ready to offer some kind of outside interference. And one other memorable character was the Genius, Lanny Poffo, brother of Macho Man Randy Savage in reality. But look, we could be here for days listing off the famous characters. And another guy I have to mention is the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, as when he showed up in WWE, he'd already lost part of his foot, but nobody knew it at the time, or at least it wasn't public knowledge, as he was so skilled and talented, even with the prosthetic limb, and nobody could see he had a disability until it was revealed years later. He was also a troubled soul and was taken years before his time, the same as many of the other stars, as a result of the troubles and the personal demons that they faced. So when watching WWF back then, we had no idea about the other organisations out there until we got a look at WCW, which was televised on ITV on Saturdays in the 90s. And this brought with it a whole new selection of characters, such as Flying Brian Pillman, the Junkyard Dog, the Steiner Brothers, one of the greatest tag teams I've ever seen, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Sid Vicious, the Road Warriors, Ron Simmons, Dustin Rhodes, the legendary Sting. My God, so many. And some of these guys would progress to WWF afterwards or had already performed in WWF in the past. But look, as time moved on and as I grew up and life got in the way, getting to follow and watching the wrestling became increasingly difficult. And eventually, I went through a number of years without access to the shows, with only brief glimpses here and there on occasion when I was lucky enough to be somewhere it may be screened. So I got disconnected from it for some time, and missed out on some great years of content, drama, and entertainment. But further down the line, and with the introduction of social media, I was able to reconnect once again, and all of the nostalgia and memories came flooding back. I was able to revisit some of the storylines and the characters, the feuds and rivalries and events that I'd missed since childhood, and catch up on all other things wrestling, such as the Attitude Era and the amazing characters that came with that. And as some of you will know, as you grow up, a lot of friends who had previously been into wrestling move on to other interests and are no longer fans. So sometimes you're the only one left who likes it. And I realise there's a stigma attached to it in some way. It can be viewed as childish or silly by some, and that's fair enough. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and you could look at it the same way as people who are major fans of superhero movies or the likes of Game of Thrones and Star Trek or Star Wars. You're a fan, and it's a passion. It's scripted and predetermined entertainment. We know all of this. It's an art form, though. And in wrestling, a story is told through physical means and by very talented, highly trained entertainers. And yes, the outcome is confirmed beforehand. But the way in which they reach this outcome is the magical part. And all the bumps and tumbles that come along the way and all the emotions and feelings are just part of it. Wrestling has been there in the good times and the bad. And yes, at times throughout the years, the quality may not have been as consistent as it could have been. But this can be said of any industry, and I think in recent years it's had a major resurgence, and it's never been as over as it is now. Some of the storylines throughout the years have been absolute madness, especially in WWE. And with all the recent controversy around Vince McMahon, if we put that to one side for the moment, his mind and his creativity were really out there through the years. But some things were just insane. And some of the things he did or made people do, you just wouldn't get away with it these days. And I also remember when Vince was a commentator, I didn't realise he was in fact the owner of the business, having taken over from his dad. But I think the WWE needed a fresh start and some new input and control. And I like to think Paul Levesque will succeed in leading the WWE forward and seems to be doing a great job so far. And what I also love about the modern day wrestling is how the women's division has blown up and how they are viewed nowadays, not as a valet or some type of arm candy, but as proper legitimate stars and wrestlers in their own right. Women have been around and wrestling since the dawn of time. When you had the likes of Mae Young, the fabulous Moolah going way back, and then Sherry Martel and Miss Elizabeth, who were mainly remembered as being valets or managers to the male talent. And we then witnessed the Divas era with such stars as Trish Stratus, Lita, Molly Holly, as well as so many more. A real mix of talent and athleticism. However, they were portrayed in a sleazier way at the time and perhaps used in a manner that didn't give them the respect they deserved. But the likes of Trish, Lita, Chyna, they helped pave the way for the women's division we see and we love today. And they opened the doors for the wonderful female athletes that are flourishing right now in the likes of Bayley, Bianca, Rhea Ripley, and so on. And it's amazing to witness this. But just going to an event such as WrestleMania, you can see what it means to fans. You get a great mix of the casual fans as well as the diehard fans, all together, loving every second of the matches. The atmosphere is like nothing I've ever experienced before. Generations of people, large groups of friends who've travelled from all over the world, roaring and chanting at the tops of their voices. Some of the fans dressed as their favourite characters. It's an unbelievable spectacle. The lights, the pyro, the theme tunes, the euphoria, it's second to none. And events such as WrestleCon and WWE World, where fans get to meet their all-time heroes and interact, get photos, autographs, and just have a chat. It means so much to some people just being able to do that. And I never thought I'd have the chance to attend the showcase of the Immortals. It was a distant pipe dream for me as a kid, and to be able to finally manage this was amazing, and meet some legends along the way and chat to other like-minded fans. It was a real dream come true. And I'd safely say in the past 6 months, I've probably become even more of a fan, and I'm starting to see the real talent we have here in Ireland with the promotions available to us, such as OTT, Hard Knocks Wrestling, Rebel County Wrestling, Titanic Wrestling, and so many more. They're punching way above their weight, week in, week out, with the amazing productions, the lighting, the music, the camera work, and the multi-talented rosters. They're just incredible. Ireland has produced some unbelievable stars through the years, and it's something we can be very proud of. Stars that have gone on to big things and excelled overseas with great success in the big time of WWE. And stars we've produced like Fit Finlay, Sheamus, Becky Lynch, Finn Balor, JD McDonough, and now Lyra Valkyria, among others, and no doubt many more will follow their path in the coming years, as we've a rich history of producing exceptional talent from such a small nation. And I'm hoping to attend more of these local events in the coming months and also help promote the product in some way and interact more with like-minded fans here and abroad. I also hope to make it to more WWE events moving forward, as well as the entertainment and drama from the likes of AEW and TNA, as we can't forget these. They're also doing a great job with weekly productions and regular pay-per-views, and it's never been a better time to be a fan of pro wrestling, with the variety and the options available. And it's exciting looking forward at all the possibilities. Yes, you may have a favourite brand that you turn to all the time, and I suppose for me, that's probably been WWE. But there is so much to choose from these days, and it's worth giving them all a try. And I used to think that us wrestling fans were a pretty small group with a niche interest, but I think I may have been wrong on that one, as the wrestling community is far and wide, and some of the friendliest, most welcoming people you could hope to meet. And it's a passion and interest that I'll continue to keep. Once again, folks, thank you for joining me. And if you're a wrestling fan and you like this content, then please like, follow, subscribe, share, and feel free to reach out to me about all things wrestling, or let me know what first got you hooked with wrestling. And until next time, take care and keep grappling with greatness.